What up, reader fam? Today I'm bringing you another video in my Books I've Read Recently series. The series on my channel where I share the books that I've read recently with you. The title is pretty self-explanatory. I'm really excited to share this video with you guys today because I feel like in my most recent Books I've Read Recently videos, I haven't been loving the books that I've been reading and I've been giving you guys a lot of negative reviews, but today I'm sharing with you some books that I loved and I couldn't be more excited to share them with you. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, I'm going to be talking about the Booksplosion book of the month for the month of May, and we worked with Bloomsbury, and the book we read was The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things by CAROLYN MACKLER. We've already had our live show for this book, so I will leave a link down below to that live show if you want to go and check out all our spoilery thoughts. We had a really great discussion about this book, so it's definitely worth checking out. This story follows a girl named Virginia Shreves who is plus size, and she kind of feels like the black sheep in her family because she's the only one with that body type. The story at its core is about Virginia just trying to find a comfortable state in the body that she has. But it also focuses on quite a few other things. In fact, I want to give quite a few trigger warnings for this book because while this book somehow does maintain this kind of lighthearted feeling to it, it does cover a lot of dark and heavy topics. So trigger warning for rape, self-harm, eating disorders, and suicide. I really liked this book. I felt like it tackled the topic of body image in a really great way. It can be hard to read at times because there are so many low points that our main character goes throughout this book. You can definitely tell right off the bat why Virginia is in the state of mind that she's in at the beginning of this book. As you read on, you uncover all these little subtle comments that are being made to her and about her, and these things are tearing her down on a daily basis. Like things her dad says and things her mom says. They make these subtle little comments about her body image, and they don't even realize how much weight their words have attached to them and how it's just weighing down Virginia. She's had years of these little blows, and they're starting to add up and really just pile on her. She's not only facing this in her home life though, she also faces this at school. For an example, one day she's going to the bathroom and she overhears these girls talking about her, and the conversation has a focus on Virginia's weight, and it's mentioned how they would rather be dead than have her body type. So it's quickly recognizable why Virginia feels shame being in the body that she's in. Something that I really liked about the writing in this story was the fact that even though it's definitely drenched in devastation and pain over what our main character faces, it also maintains a rather light feeling. I'd say it helps that our main character has some nice comedic moments throughout the story. The plot itself was good. It definitely explored a lot of really interesting things. I do wish that some of the topics that it brought up would have been explored a little bit more, and that's why I just can't give this book the full 5 out of 5 stars. There were just some things that I wanted to expand on, but I did end up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I can definitely recommend it. And I'm hoping to read the sequel here. The universe is expanding, and so am I, here pretty soon because I loved this first book so much. I need to know where the story goes in the sequel. Next up, I read this poem that was bound into a book by Jason Reynolds called For Everyone. This is a poem that he wrote with a focus on the idea of being a dreamer. It's really simple, but it definitely packs a good old punch. I left this poem feeling hecka inspired. Going into this, I knew I was going to love it. I'm a sucker for inspirational things like this. I'm always putting little inspirational backdrops on my phone. The current one I have on my phone is Believe You Can and You Will. I really like having little inspirational backgrounds on my phone just as a reminder to keep reaching to be a better person. So going into this, I kind of knew I'd love it. Also, it's written by Jason Reynolds, and he is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. If you're in need of some inspiration, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. It just breaks down the idea of being a dreamer, and something that I really liked that it touched on is how you can be doing anything in your life. You could have fulfilled one of your biggest dreams already, and you can still dream up something else for your life, and you can chase after that dream with all you've got too. It gets pretty personal too. He definitely pulls from some of his own experiences. Jason Reynolds is definitely a very successful author now, but he had to work through a lot of obstacles and had to overcome a lot in the process. Overall, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. Holla! I'm finally out of my 5-star rating drought. Next up, I have here All American Boys, another Jason Reynolds book, but he teamed up with Brandon KIELY for this book. This story follows 2 different perspectives. The first perspective we have is a black teen named Rashad. He is one day just minding his own business. He goes into this gas station to pick up a snack. This lady ends up accidentally tripping over him, and it causes this really big chaotic scene. Nothing bad happens at all, but a cop that's in the gas station just assumes the worst and goes after Rashad, and he ends up being handled in a very violent way even though he did nothing. So then we follow the perspective of Quinn, who is a white teen, and he watches this situation go down, and he actually knows the cop. In fact, the police officer is a family friend. So this whole situation between the police officer and Rashad ends up becoming something so much bigger. It causes an uproar of protests and conflicts. While Rashad is in the hospital recovering from what happens, Quinn is conflicted with what he should do in this situation. He's afraid of going against a family friend, but he also knows the truth of what happened. This book tackles police brutality in a way that I really appreciated. It really hammers in the fact that not all police are bad. Something else that this book covers is the idea of having someone you know do something out of line, and you have to kind of tackle this idea of loyalty over doing what's right. Racism is also very present in this story. In fact, it's kind of the core of why everything goes down in the first place. Something that I really liked about this story is that this isn't a book that sets aside character development in order to focus on the issues, which I think that can be a downfall of a lot of books like this one. The authors can kind of forget to develop the characters and make them have distinct voices and kind of have them be drowned out by what's happening in the story, but that doesn't happen in this book. The voices are super distinct. And I think that's why I love this book so much, because of the fact that I cared about the characters so much. It made me care that much more about the situations that they were involved in. I highly recommend checking out this book. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, another 5 stars. Hey, don't get too excited though, because the next book was not a 5-star. And that book is As You Wish by Chelsea Sedoti. This story takes place in this small town called Madison, and in this small town, on your 18th birthday, you get the chance to have one wish, and that one wish will come true. So while this was not a 5-star read for me, I surprisingly liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Full disclosure, I read reviews for this book before I picked it up and read it, and people were tearing it apart on Goodreads. And honestly, it kind of piqued my interest and made me want to read this book even more. So I picked it up, read it, and liked it so much more than I thought I was going to. And maybe that's because my expectations were so low, but in my opinion, this book was so much fun. From the reviews that I read, one of the main issues that a lot of people had was with the main character, who is super unlikable, and that's why I liked him. I liked the fact that he was an unlikable character. Something that I really loved about this book is how it brings in all these different perspectives. If you've read books like The Sun Is Also a Star or They Both Die at the End, you kind of get to see those different perspectives of other people in the world, and that happens in this book as well, and I really liked that. You get to see wishes that were made by other people living in Madison and how it kind of has affected their lives. I like this element a lot because to me it brings a lot of depth to the story. Also, I'm just really nosy and I wanted to know what everybody's wishes were. I really appreciated the fact that this book went in a direction that I was not expecting. It's definitely a book that surprised me. It could have easily gone in this really cheesy and predictable way, but it didn't, and what happened had me shook. Now, obviously this book wasn't perfect. One thing that I kind of had issue with was how this story just kind of felt super long-winded. I do feel like it could have been condensed quite a bit and edited down. This is also a book where you really have to suspend your disbelief while reading it, because it's so unrealistic, but it is fiction we're talking about here. I think the ideas surrounding the town of Madison are still kind of mysterious, and you do get information about it and how it runs throughout the story, but it's still kind of mysterious, and you still kind of just have to go with it. Just take what they give you and run with it. There's also just not a lot of character growth within the story. Like, our main character just remains a douche. He doesn't grow at all. There is one aspect of his character that's kind of good and that I really liked seeing, but I can't say what that is because it spoils the book, so I'm not gonna spoil it. All that being said, I think that I would give this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's a lot of fun. I can't necessarily recommend it. I would be afraid to recommend this book because I feel like people will hate this book because of the fact that our main character is unlikable, so I'm not gonna recommend it, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. Lastly, we have here a book that I'm still trying to figure my feelings out on, and that is This Is Where It Ends by Marieke NIJKAMP. This story essentially just follows a school shooting. That's all you need to know, really. In this book, we follow 4 different perspectives, and I actually found it really difficult following those 4 different perspectives. I didn't feel as though the characters were super distinct in this book, even though we do get quite a bit of detail about each of them, and realistically, this book isn't necessarily about getting to know the characters. characters, and it's about the fact that there's an active shooter on their campus and they've got to figure out a way to survive. I still feel like I wanted more from the characters. I think something that would have made me like this book more is having the perspective of the shooter, which sounds terrible, I know, but he was one of the most flat characters in this book. Even though we do see details about him and about his character through our other characters that we're seeing through the perspective of, I feel like we never really see the complexity of his mind, and the reason behind his doing just kind of comes down to him being evil. And I feel like there could have just been so much more to it. I will say that where I think this author succeeds in this story is the tone. It definitely feels real, and maybe that's because school shootings are happening more and more these days. So maybe that realness feeling might be coming from the fact that this is happening today. School shootings are happening more now than ever. But the author did a really great job of writing this kind of tension feeling throughout the story. You really feel the fear and the darkness of this horrific event that's taking place. I feel like something that I just really wanted in general from this book was more. I wanted more from the characters, and something that I really wanted was more from the ending. It kind of felt like a missed opportunity in my opinion. We never really tackle the issue at hand. We have this really horrific event that's happened, and we never really explore how we can prevent this from happening in the future. So all in all, this book just kind of felt surface level. It just kind of felt like the starting of a conversation that goes beyond this book. But maybe that was the purpose of this book. Maybe the author had the intention of writing this book to start the conversation. Overall, I think that I would give this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So those are all the books that I've read recently. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. Also, let me know down below in the comments some books that you've read recently and your thoughts on those books. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos frequently on this channel, so if you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe, or go and click the little bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew.